Welcome to the Men After God podcast, where you will be challenged and encouraged as you pursue God, achieve success, and raise a thriving family. Join your host, Dustin, and his guests on a weekly journey to grow as husbands, fathers, and men after God. Here is your host, Dustin Alley.
Hey guys, welcome back to another week of the Men After God podcast. I'm excited to be with my friend Kenny here. I got to meet at a fantastic conference that was part of the Men of Valor Ministries just in the last month or so as of the time of this recording. And we were going to do this audio only, but now it seems my camera is working. So if we have the video up on YouTube, that's fantastic. I hope you guys enjoy seeing our beautiful faces. If not, don't worry about it. But it's going to be a great day. Kenny and I got connected at that conference. We started talking some. He's also a Maxwell coach, speaker and trainer, and he plays a leadership game too. There's like 5 things they say we do. I forgot them. He's new, so he still remembers them. But I'm excited to have our conversation with him today because I know he is going to share his heart. He's going to be authentic and real. He invested in my boys at that conference, and I loved it. Told some great jokes. I don't know if we're going to share them on here, but nonetheless, it was a great time. So I'm excited for you to get to meet my new friend, Kenny. Kenny, thanks for being on here with us, man. Tell us about yourself, your family, and like how you came to know Jesus.
Dustin, thanks so much for having me on. That was a great conference, and I've been there. I think that was number 3 or 4 for me, and I'm going to have to tell you that the Men of Valor conference, that was the best one that I've attended to date. Was fantastic. And
shout out to Eric and his team, and I'm sure I'll turn.
We'll get Eric did great, Travis, and man, all the guys, they did fantastic. Well, man, I'll tell you what, Dustin. So when I was 6 years old, I was at we were at a little small church close to where I grew up and lived, and we had a group called the Swilly family. So it was a mom and dad and 2 boys, and the 2 boys played trumpet, and one played bass guitar, one played the drums as well. So they both played trumpet, but then they played different instruments as well. So the Swilly family was there. They were pretty much a staple, I guess, when the pastor had them to come in and talk many times and lead and sing and share their music ministry. And so at 6 years old, at that particular night, man, I surrendered to the Lord, or whatever that meant. I was like, just my little bitty brain of that night to say, hey, I needed a Savior. And so 6 years old, I got saved. That really, what I didn't know at the time was just that I was so intrigued at the fact that they both played instruments, and this music thing that was going on was pretty cool. Yeah. And so I was like, man, that's pretty awesome. And so later on, I was at I grew up, so I got around 15 years old. We were at the Youth Evangelism Conference, which was in Macon, Georgia, at the Coliseum there. David Ring, who is a gentleman who has cerebral palsy, he was on the speaking circuit, evangelist speaking circuit. I mean, he's one of those guys that go like, well, man, if God can use that guy, you know what I'm saying? I mean, that's kind of where he was. Like, because you didn't have an excuse. I mean, this guy, it took you a few minutes to start understanding what he said. I mean, it just really took a little bit to finally lean in and go, okay, got it. For whatever reason, God and myself and David Ring were in amongst about 3,000 or so people, and it was just us in a conversation. And I was like, I was the only one in the room. I mean, it's so weird. It's like, it wasn't even blinders. It was just like nobody existed. It was just us. And God was using him as a mouthpiece. And in that particular specific moment, I surrendered my life to ministry. Now, I didn't know what that meant. I walked down the aisle gate, man. I was already saved. It wasn't another salvation moment. This was truly that I didn't know if it was going to be preaching ministry, music ministry, missions. I had no clue. All I knew was God was calling me into something deeper, in a calling for him. And I didn't know what all that meant. But I left there, man. I was on fire, man. I felt like I was sitting at the table, I had my Bible open, man, hands up in the air, man. I'm reading the Psalm, praying the Psalms, singing songs. It just felt like, man, this was just, if there's any special time that I had with the Lord, man, this was it. 15 years old, it couldn't get any better than this. Well, 1 year to the date from the time that I surrendered my life to ministry, I was I was in a church, and I turned 16. We know what happens when everybody turns 16. We get a driver's license, man.
Yeah.
We're on the way, man. We're just okay. So now we got freedom, okay, not the Braveheart type freedom, but it's definitely a freedom nonetheless. I'm going to get away from mom and dad. I can go do what I want to do. I can track, go where I want to. So we had about 175 in the church. We had over 100 in the student and children's ministry on a Wednesday night. Our minister of music and youth had a Bible study that he began. Okay, so right after we came back from that youth evangelism conference, we started a Bible study on Thursday nights. We had like 52 youth. I'm like, that was nuts. I mean, I'm talking 52 youth coming to awesome. A Bible study. I was like, man, this is fantastic. But a year later, walk in, something was off. It didn't seem right. And come to find out on that Sunday morning that our minister of music and youth had an affair with the organist.
Oh my gosh.
Our church was like devastated. I mean, so much so that the minister of music that was at the time, him and his wife just had their fourth child. So like this baby wasn't even a year old yet that I recollect.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about a crisis of belief moment. Crisis of faith moment. Here it was. Okay, so what was being poured into me? I'm going to RAs, man. I'm going to youth ministry. I'm going to Sunday mornings. I'm in Sunday school. I'm doing all that what we did as far as discipleship goes. I'm going to discipleship training on Sunday nights. I'm guarding my Wednesdays. I'm guarding my Sundays. I'm not missing. I'm in the youth choir. Man, youth choir was big. We had 35 to 40 kids singing in youth choir, and man, I was all in. Man, I'm all in. Okay. And then that moment hit, and I'm like, oh my. And so really what happened in that moment was, if that's what ministry is like, I don't want anything to do with it. Now that's my choice. Okay, that's my choice.
Yeah.
So what's really made an indelible mark in my life was simply this. I became the prodigal. I really did. So it took me about 3 weeks. I always guarded Sundays, I always guarded Wednesdays. Now all of a sudden, my next door neighbor, who was my manager, said, "Hey Kenny, would you mind working Sunday? Can you come to work Sunday? Can you come to work Sunday?" And she's asked before, and I've always said no. I've got church and whatever. And that one turned into two, that turned into three. And now I'm not there on Sunday mornings, and now I'm not there on Sunday nights. Well, now I'm not there on Wednesday nights. Now I'm really de-churched. Okay, now I'm really lost. I'm lost at sea. Mom and dad can't talk to me because, I'm more brilliant than they are, right? Because I'm at that age. I'm more brilliant than they are. They don't know anything, okay? So I'm more brilliant. And I just drift, man. I went on a 10-year journey, but what I realized was at that moment in time, my youth leader and my pastor and anybody at my Sunday school teacher, not one of them reached out. Like, I didn't get a phone call. Now, this is pre-cell phone days. Okay. So some of your listeners won't know what that's like. I mean, we do have these things today that we know. This was pre-cell phone. I mean, we were just thankful to have like the cord that extended all the way down into your room. Okay.
Because then you could close the door and have some privacy. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Instead of the little bitty cord, you got to talk with everybody in the room. Yeah. Okay. So that was the days that I was in. Okay. So that's how I grew up. So nobody called me. Nobody said, "Hey Kenny, let's go get a Coke. Let's go to Dairy Queen, or let's go to Burger King. Let's go grab a burger and hey, let's chat." And it wasn't until later till I talked to one of the youth leaders, and the youth leaders told me, said, "Hey, well, man, I'm really sorry," but said we were not in a good place either because we weren't living like we needed to be living.
Yeah,
made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So 10 years have drifted. In the meantime, I went and got my degree. I had a bachelor's of music education degree. So I went to Valdosta State College at the time. I became a band director. I met my wife. So we met, in December, we had our first date. And then in April, I proposed. In August, we were married. We're on track for our life. I finished up my second year of band directing, and then off we go to Southern Seminary. And so I'm off to go to seminary after being married for a year. and leaving the band directing world to go off into ministry and really fulfill the calling that God had in my life. So I finally surrendered my calling to the Lord during that time. So we got married. Man, I was wrestling with it. I loved it. Had a great, I'm talking about great 2 years of just band, that's my band ministry basically. So the kids, man, listening to them, leadership, all the things I have. And some days I feel like those were some of the best leadership days I ever had in my life. But those were 2 great years, right? And I mean, the influence, I mean, the stuff that we were able to do and accomplish. I mean, we were able to accomplish more than I've ever hoped and dreamed during those 2 years. But I finally went off and we just tracked on this journey, but it took me 10 years. Mm-hmm. So think about that. So that was, 6 years old, I got saved. 15, I surrendered my life to ministry. The crisis happened at 16, and it took me to 26 to get there. Mm. So here I am in that 10-year gap where, I mean, to be honest, man, I didn't attend church. I did stuff that I'm not happy about. I mean, I had my share of weed. You know what I'm saying? I had my share of screwdrivers on the campus. I knew what it was like to have the frat parties and enjoy all those things, knowing in my mind, knowing in my heart and in my spirit, man, you're not living right, Kenny. You are not living right. No. And I know that. And I'm just in total rebellion. I mean, I'm talking about absolute rebellion. Because I'm fighting that, because all I know about ministry was what I saw at 16. I said, I don't want any part of that junk. But I was living that junk, but not in ministry, right? So I finally at that time, I finally surrendered. I told Gene, I said, well, you know what? I've got a lot of joy being a band director. I have a lot of joy playing my instrument, doing what I do, but I'm not at peace. And I said, I've got to do something. I said, I've got to surrender my life to ministry. I said, what do you think? I said, what do you think about this? I mean, we're going to church. I was an interim minister of music at a church here locally, and I was doing all that stuff. And she said, let's go. And so here we do. We pick up. We go about 11 to 12 hours away from our parents, and we don't know anybody at school. We're just going there, and so here we are. We're having to grow together. So that was a really good time period for us to get away and like grow in the Lord, grow in Christ, grow through the seminary experience, and then leading at our church that we led. And so that whole thing led me to, if I'm in ministry, there's one thing that I don't want to do.
Yeah.
I don't want to see somebody drift and me never contact them.
Yeah.
So that really galvanized for me discipleship. Now, I didn't know all of that. I mean, I know we had classes like that in seminary, but I don't remember a whole lot about that stuff, to be honest. I mean, I know we took some classes, but we're doing this stuff in the church. I've got my role and I'm doing the things I'm doing, but through that journey. So for the last 32 years, I've been very intentional about if I see somebody starting to drift, if I see somebody, like I heard somebody say not too terribly long ago, he said, you can tell that people are starting to disconnect. He said, because you can see their posture and you can see where they're located in your church. They'll start out in the second row or they'll be in the fourth or whatever, and they start moving toward the back. He said, then they move toward the back and they get to the back, and next thing you know, they're out the door. He says, you start seeing where they're getting placed and they move, they're moving. He said, so, and that I really kind of hung on that to go, okay, if I'm starting to see some people move, now I start to reach out. Hey, how are things going? But I've been very intentional over the last, let's say, 20 years. I've been very intentional about this discipleship process. But that's where it extends back to, Dustin, for me is nobody reached out. And I can't go back. Like, I can't go back. I wish I could. I wish I could say, okay, what if, and I play these what if games. I still do sometimes. What if my pastor would have said, hey, Kenny, come to my office. Come to my office. Hey, let's sit down. What's going on, man? What is going on with yourself? Why are you acting like a fool? I like him really calling me out. So why are you drifting? So, and then he could have shepherded me, or he could have just like challenged me, or he could have counseled me. He could have done something with me to say, well, that's called sin. And this is what sin looks like. And this is what it causes, right? There's shrapnel, there's damage with a lot of people here, but that's what the enemy wants to do, is to seek, kill, and destroy. And so you got to be on guard. And said, that's why in ministry, you got to do some things that are very intentional to safeguard yourself. He could have really pastored me in a huge way, but he didn't. Okay. And then I didn't have anybody else in that realm. So, but what if that would happen? I can't say that I would have been any different. I might have drifted later on. So my journey it took me 10 years to kind of catch up, to kind of wake up. But it's what it did for me was it put something inside of me about discipleship that was very important, because it was more, I was there for worship on Sunday morning. I was there at Sunday school Sunday morning. I was there for discipleship training and church that night. And I was there on Wednesday nights. And I was there on Thursday night Bible study. But did it transform me? Did I check a box? Was I like the Pharisees in some ways? Was I just like doing the thing? Or was I really seeking him like I was at my kitchen table with my hands raised and praying the Psalms, and I'm developing that relationship to transform into everything that he wanted me to become? Or did I just come to start playing church like most of them did? But for me, that's kind of where I landed in. But man, discipleship at that moment in time, when I look back on it, that's where the spark began, which has led me into these 32 years of ministry.
Man, that is amazing. And I love how you were able to, you went through that crisis of faith, right? And then you get into this journey of life to where, you get away from the Lord for a while. And, that's part of my testimony. And then God receives you back, calls you back there. And then now you made discipleship and those connections such an important piece. And truthfully, a lot of us do that. We find what we needed earlier in life and try to become that. And that's not a bad thing. I'm commending you for it. I think I'm doing the same thing. But let's talk about that discipleship piece. We were discussing this a little bit before, because I know now you're doing kind of in a different way with coaching, speaking, training, all that, and it's still discipleship. That's one thing I'm frustrated about is we've relegated discipleship to like a 12-week program, learn the doctrine, learn the words, say the things, and then go do it for someone else. And it's like that's a transfer of information. That's not the development of connection. And and what Jesus did for discipleship was develop the connection with the people and live life with them as they were going through it all. And sure, he was teaching through it, but it was as they were living life. So let's talk about that discipleship piece for a minute. What is it that really like you love to see a person? And again, I understand discipleship's a lifelong process. What is it you love to see in a person as they either go through or like that spark moment that keeps you driving to help someone grow in the Lord? What is it that does that for you?
Well, I mean, I think one thing before we step in that is I think we're talking about the orthodoxy versus orthopraxy. Okay, we want to talk about some of those things, right? So, hey, we're getting to know more, but then the orthopraxy is actually doing it. I think when people are starting to be transformed and you're starting to see light bulbs go off, like, and when that comes, you can't really, maybe you can't put it into every word, but you can watch their life. All of a sudden it's like, oh, I got it. Oh, I get this. Oh, and you're starting to see some fruit of the Spirit kind of being lived out in their life. I think those are great moments because it's not just the fact that they have come to Christ, and that's a beautiful moment of salvation, but it's seeing them from that moment forward to go, okay, let me lean in to learn and to love like Jesus. Let me be everything that he wants me to be. And what does that process look like? And how do I get there? And it is more than just a 12-week deal. I mean, so I wish people, to be honest, I wish they could say, okay, if there's a command in the Bible, go make disciples is a command. It's not a suggestion. We do call that the Great Commission, and it's become the Great Omission because we want to know more. I want to know more. I want to know more. I mean, we've fallen into all these traps, but I love it when people go, okay, I don't really know an awful lot, but man, I'm just contagious because I'm just on fire for the Lord, basically. I just love Jesus, and I love what he's doing in my life. I love how he's transformed my life. I love how he's transformed my marriage. I love how he's transformed my kids. My kids see me in a different way. And now you're watching them bring people with them. Okay? Think about the woman at the well. What would that be like in our churches if we saw the woman at the well? Like she became the greatest evangelist. Right? I mean, so here she is. She's in a different time of the day, not being around anybody, Jesus meets her at the well, and like, man, and he knows everything about him, but she leaves, she drops a bucket, she runs back and says, hey, here's this man. He's like, Jesus, oh, he loves me. I mean, all this, that's when it gets to be fun in ministry. That's when it gets to be fun to see the people that you've come in contact with, that they finally get those aha moments that, oh, this is what it means to abide in him. This is what he says, man, abide in me. Like I'm the vine, you're the branches. For you to sit, I mean, to realize that every single day we get to sit at his feet. Like we've got this whole skewed mindset of like, I do this thing wrong. Like I've fumbled the ball, so to say, in the faith. And we're sitting at the dinner table and Jesus looks at us and goes, oh no, go down there. Go down there. No, go down there.
Yeah.
No, I won't talk to you. Just go down there. That's kind of how we've got it in our mindset. Instead of what he's doing is he says, hey, come sit right here. Sit right next to me. He says, you know, I love you. But he also says, well, go sin no more. You know, I mean, he said, I love you, but hey, go sin no more. Right. So he does correct you in that. But if we could just grasp, man, that I love this phrase, and I've had to really work on this in my own life. But when we say that, I mean, you're already in. Now, think about that phrase: salvation happening right there, right at that moment. You're saved, man. You're secure. You're secure in Christ, right. Man. You're going to heaven, okay? But to say that, man, you're already in. People have got this other mindset of, yeah, but I've got to work my way to do something. No, you're in. And because you're in, out of that, you get to do these things. Like, I get to go to worship. I get to go to life group or home group or whatever. I get to read my Bible. I get to pray. I get to practice the gift he's given me. I get to live this out. So I'm doing good works. That way I'm pointing to him, and others get to see him because of the good works they see in me. It's not that I'm doing good works to earn something. It's because I love this phrase. God is not opposed to effort. He's opposed to earning.
That's good. I like
that. A great phrase?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
God is not opposed to effort. Guess what? When we say, yes, I surrender, I give my life to you, guess what happens? Now we get to go to work. Hey, listen, God worked for 6 days and he rested on day 7. He's not opposed to work. He's not opposed to work.
Not at all.
He's opposed to earning. So now we get to go do these things, and out of this, man, the joy should come from us. And to see that, just to see people living in mainly their purpose too, like purpose, right? So a lot of this, you know, Dustin, I think for me has, we talked a little bit about this kind of at the conference, but you know, I had a really life-changing event for me last year.
Yeah.
And it has put me on steroids. I mean, I'm talking about steroids, big time. So one of the things, I've been a part of the Bonhoeffer Project. This was an organization with Bill Hull. It's discipleship. I was on the national leadership team. And so we've been around this stuff, and I've been kind of talk about it. But we talk about the gospel. Like if you were to go into your church and you say, okay, you're going to pass out cards to everybody, and everybody write down what is the gospel. How many different gospel interpretations would you get?
More than I'd like, I'm sure.
More than we'd like, right? Okay, so then if you would say, what is a disciple? How many different translations would you get from people? A lot, right? So defining those two terms, because the gospel you preach determines the disciples you produce. So if it's a prosperity gospel, guess what kind of disciples you're going to produce? If it's a consumer gospel, guess what you're going to produce? If it's a forgiveness only gospel, what are you going to do? If it's a gospel of the right, what are you going to produce? So if we're looking at the gospel, so defining the gospel, defining what a disciple is, really gets you on the path of, understand biblically what this is. So last year, July 3rd, I ended up having a stroke. Now, I never would have thought I mean, and I know I don't look a day over 90, but hey, like I was
Not at all.
57.
Not at
Yeah,
all.
57. I don't feel a day over 90, really.
Yeah.
But hey, so 57 years old, okay, and I wake up that morning and I have a stroke. And the gravity of it was that afternoon when the doctor looked at myself, my wife in the eyes, and he said, "You dodged a bullet today." He said, "You had a stroke equivalent to a widowmaker heart attack." Now, he said,
Oh my
if you've been
gosh.
asleep, he said, if you're asleep, you're probably dead. Now,
Wow.
think about those words. Okay, so one of my
Yeah.
life verses, my life verse, I've been saying this for years, Psalm 90:12. Lord, teach me to number my days that I may gain a heart of wisdom. Oh, that has never been more apparent and true and depth grown in that one verse than since last year on July 3rd. So, as a disciple, Lord, teach me to number my days that I may gain a heart of wisdom, which has put the gospel on steroids. Everybody needs the gospel. We are commanded to go share the gospel. But do we? Like, I'm trying to find different ways and natural rhythms of life to weave the gospel story into somewhere in our conversations. Okay, so I'm trying to do that. And that's been more heightened since July 3rd of last year, because you know what? I don't know when I'm going to be here anymore.
Yeah.
And when I'm not here anymore, that means that whatever work that I have done to share the gospel with people, that I've actually introduced people to the King of Kings, to King Jesus, then my mission on this planet is over, and I don't have any more opportunities to bring anybody else with me. So that's a reality. And now that I look at it, and my life has been spared, I'm able to breathe, I'm able to function, I'm able to speak and communicate, teach and train, and whatever these things are. Now what do? Who do I go? So everywhere I go, it's like, man, I get to share the story. So a lot of stuff like, hey, Facebook stuff is different. Presence is different there. Presence is different on social media overall. So one of the taglines that I came across, I totally ripped it off, stole it, but it says, hey, as long as you have a pulse, you have a purpose, and the King has a plan.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Yeah.
That's my statement every single day. And that's my sign off for everything. As long as you have a pulse, you have a purpose, the King has a plan. Most people never find their purpose because they're looking in the wrong place. He's gifted you to do something. Okay, so he's gifted me to play an instrument, to be a musician, to speak, to be able to equip people, to train, to do these things in different ways. And now I'm able to do this in a business sector, which I'm able to take that. And guess what? As long as you have a pulse, you have a purpose, and the King has a plan. I can do that. It don't matter. I'm coming and going. I can be your band, whatever. But I don't have to shove it down anybody's throat. You just say, hey, as a person of faith, blah, blah. I can just share those things. So it's just become on steroids to me. It's just really heightened up because I don't know how much longer I'm going to be here. I hope I'm here for a lot longer time so I can make an impact with other people. But people finding their purpose, and the purpose is, well, every one of us as a disciple of Jesus we're commanded to go make disciples who make disciples. And so if we're to make disciples and make disciples, what does that look like? It could be your family. That's your first place. Absolutely. Who is it in your workspace that's just, man, one person you can walk alongside? Hey, let's just go grab some coffee. Let's go have a conversation. Let's talk. Let's talk. And just ask good questions. In mind, I love how I think Matt Chandler says it when they go into the book of Proverbs, he says, hey, let's go mining for jewels today. Well, that's really like in the conversations. That's what I'm trying to do. When I'm asking questions, I'm going mining for jewels because something's going to surface. Something's going to come out that we can talk about and we can share and help them. And I think in a lot of ways that's coaching in some degree.
Absolutely.
And I love coaching. Letting you realize, hey, you're here, but we're wanting to go here. What does that look like to get there, and helping them realize those things and just asking questions just to unearth those, right? To get those things out. So all that to say in discipleship, I love it when they find their purpose. And really their purpose is simply this, is that you're a disciple to share the gospel and to live a life that's holy and pleasing to him. He's gifted you with a talent. And he's put you in a place where you can utilize that talent. And he's gifted you to do what you do, to now give back to other people. So you're not a hoarder. Okay, so I think so. So yeah, so I think one thing that really hit me this past week, I was reading one of John Maxwell's latest book, in his what was the book? What's the book title? Where
High
we at?
Road
We're at
Leadership,
High Road
or
Leadership. This is it.
he came up. So he's got High Road Leadership, and then there's is it Leading
Jesus,
Like
the High
Jesus?
Road
He
Leader.
might call it
Yeah,
Jesus the High Road
yeah.
Leader. That's it.
Jesus High Road Leader. Jesus High Road Leader is what he got there. Yeah, but the High Road Leadership. Here's what he said, and I haven't heard him say it in this phrase, but man, I've really clung to it. I'm like, that's it. Okay, so setting the stage is like abundance mindset, scarcity mindset. Okay, so you can be a believer, you can be a follower of Jesus, but which mindset do you have? Is it abundance mindset or scarcity mindset? Scarcity says there's not enough to go around. I got to hoard it. An abundance mindset says, man, I see a lot of people that are hungry. I need to go help them and feed them. Okay, so I think Spurgeon says some things on that line as well, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
But so here's what he said. He says, the more I earn and the more I learn, the more I return.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so
Man,
good.
oh, and great. I mean, that right there, I don't know why. Again, that's just, and I'm a sticky note guy, so that kind of hit me. The more I earn, the more I learn, the more I return.
Yeah.
As a follower of Jesus, no matter what we do, okay, so my purpose is to present the gospel with everybody that I can share it with. But then me living into what he's called me to do, whether it be I'm working at a factory or I'm a teacher, I'm a leader, I'm a coach or whatever else. But the more that I earn and the more that I learn, the more I can return. So your money is, how can I bless somebody with something today? And it can be $10, it can be $20, it can be $100. I mean, whatever that looks like. How can I return that to people? Because you can't outgive anyway.
Right.
Now the more I learn. Okay, so think about this in every church setting. Let's just think about this in men's ministry. What if every man were to grab one thing every single morning that they learned from God's word, and they go, I'm going to return that to somebody today. Because when we return it, we learn more. When we return it, we get more out of it than we do by hoarding it. So is it going to be that this is for me, I'm going to keep me? Dustin, I've never, I mean, in my years of ministry, every time that I get down into God's word and I get something that morning, you know what it is? It isn't for me. It's for somebody else. And it never fails that there's a conversation that God's already equipped me and prepared me for that morning that I'm sharing with somebody that afternoon. It never fails. Like, man, you're not going to believe this. I read this morning. And it said, teach me to number my days that may gain heart of wisdom. And then guess what? And I'm having that conversation with somebody and they're going, oh, that's good. Or, I read that this morning that, man, the more I earn, the more I learn, the more I return. And they go, Kenny. And I'm like, I know it's for somebody.
That's it.
Right. But if we can get in that mindset of that we're givers and not takers. And a lot of us have fallen that trap in the church that we become consumers, or that Christians become consumers instead of givers. So we're takers and not givers. And I just feel like, man, if every man and woman of faith can get to a place where they can live in that abundance mindset, and they can get to a place where they live in a just that abundance mindset, but they can give. They're givers, and it doesn't matter because it's not about. He says it's not about net worth. It's not about net worth. Just are you willing to give? It's a mindset. And I think that's so when we talk about the life of somebody, when it really makes, when talking about that disciple, I think that's it. It is the person that finally starts getting it, that their mindset's changed. Romans 12, right? So, man, the renewing of the mind, okay? Renewing the mind so much that I realize that, all this needs to flow through my hands. All this needs to flow through me. He's using me. Are you a reservoir or a river?
Yeah, I heard that one recently. I love that one. That is so.
Are you?
phenomenal.
Yeah, are you a conduit, right? Are you going to let it flow through you, or are you going to let it just stay with you?
Yeah.
And I think about in some ways too, and I know we've not had. There's some that are listening to this podcast at some point in time. They don't have good, godly, earthly models. Okay, so mom or dad or uncle or grandpa, whatever, they're not good, godly models for that. So they don't understand that on that deal. But I know, and I've been able to be blessed by having some. And man, it really is that. It flowed through their hands. They introduced me. They put me in spaces where I could grow, where the ground was fertile, the soil was fertile. It was really good for me to be able to grow. And so I was able to grow in this and understand, man, who Jesus was. And they could speak to me in these things, even though I went through those crazy years. But they set the stage and the foundation for me to continue to grow and to build on that foundation. But man, so many things. Again, the more I earn, the more I learn, the more I can return. And I think that statement right there, you can put that into a business part of it. You can put that into your family. You can put that into your financial aspect. You can, man, what spiritual, whatever. If we could take those three things and just do that every single day, man, how much more we would grow. And I love what Titus 10. I think one thing that I got out of that particular book was everywhere you go, it should be better because you're there.
I love that one.
So, and as a man of God, every place that we go, I think that's something we can ask ourselves is when we leave and evaluate it. Every place we go, is it better because we're there?
I love that. Yeah, man. Let's. That is great. See, I heard it said one way. I think it was people are going to talk about you when you leave the room. The question is, are they talking because they want you back, or are they talking because they're glad you're gone?
Oh,
and man, yeah, right. We got to check our hearts on that one, bro. I love that. Kenny, you've got so much value you just brought to the table today, man. You've overcome a lot with the stroke and this new season of life you're getting into. And ultimately, it's all still following what God has for you, just investing in others so that they can invest in others, right? I mean, what Maxwell, did we develop leaders so we develop leaders that develop leaders. And
that's right.
That is exactly what we're looking to do.
Right.
Bro, I love it, man. Kenny, thank you so much for the time today, man. I want to go ahead and call us to a point here, but this has been great. I love it. I can't wait to stay connected with you. I know I was thankful for our conversation even before we started recording. We won't get into that though. But that was a good time, man.
Please don't.
Yeah, right. Oh man, but that was a good time, bro. Hey guys, listen up. I tell you what, Kenny, why don't you go and tell the guys how they can get in touch with you if they want to follow you on any of your socials, or you got anything that you'd like for them to connect with? Go ahead and put that out there, and we'll get out in our show notes too.
Yeah, you can reach me on Facebook, man. It's just Kenny Sexton on there. Man, you can email me as well. It's just my name at macmc.com. And reach out to me if you want to send me a message in Messenger. I'll send you my website that I have. It's too long to tell you anyway today, but you can reach me through that, and I'd love to connect with you anyway. Any way I can help you and add value to you, I'd be love to.
Yeah, that's awesome, Kenny. Love it, bro. Well, hey, guys, listen, you got a lot of value today. I'm excited for you to listen to this, and I hope something stood out to you that you can do just what Kenny said. Take it, learn, and go pass it on to somebody else, because there's always something that God has given us that we can give to other people. The first and foremost thing is the gospel, so sharing that with someone is simple, easy, and great to do. And if you're someone out there who, we said if we passed it out and asked people to tell us the gospel, we get more answers than we really want. Truthfully, there's only one gospel. It's the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ paying for your sins, and it's your faith in him that secures your salvation for eternity. So if you ever got questions about that, you can reach out to us at Men After God. We'd love to talk to you about it. All right, Kenny, thank you again so much. Guys that are listening, we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Men After God podcast. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes, and keep up with the show by following us at facebook.com/menaftergod. You can also reach out to Dustin personally at dustin@seekconsulting.us with any questions or for coaching on being a man after God. Until next time.